It hurts to breathe.
That's not because you feel like shit.
No, it's because I'm fat.
Right.
Well, right.
It's,
and you're fat because you're not a quitter, right? Eat through the pain.
Dude.
Looking like you takes commitment.
Welcome to the Buckhorn Podcast. I am Martelle, and with me always is Randy. What up, Randy?
Hey.
That's it?
That's it, man. I feel like crap.
Awesome.
This mug of coffee needs to kick in fast because I'm struggling right now.
Awesome. Great.
This morning crap's got to start.
All right.
Stop.
No, hey.
Something's got to happen. This is not working for me.
Well, today, we have
Again.
nothing planned as usual, except we've got another guest in studio. We got DJ back from our Christmas episodes.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, DJ. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Fantastic.
It's good to be here. I'm
You're looking
glad
very
that I
spry.
made it alive.
Because it's Snowpocalypse.
Snowmageddon has started outside, and my Lorenzo the Benzo was sliding all over the place trying to get down your country-ass roads.
With your 3 different tires and 4 different wheels.
Yeah, exactly. My
man.
jank freeform mix and match wheel tire package.
That's a custom option for $19.99.
Definitely
It's
is
awesome.
a custom app.
You cannot get that today. Rare.
I have a.
It's rare, so it's a supercar.
So I've had the Benz since I want to say August now, and
It's been a while.
it's an older Benz. It's like a 2000, so it's not super swank or anything. But it does mean that as a 2000, it comes with like that badass hood ornament. That
Hell yeah.
And I know that anybody who's listening right now is like, well, wait a minute. DJ's got a Benz and he's a black dude. How on earth does he still have his hood ornament? Well, that's because I'm only half black. And so
And it's only half a Benz.
so I've managed to put down my myriad and sundry urges to snap off my own hood ornament and put it on a chain
suppressed.
around my neck. So you'll be happy to know that the car, at least,
Is intact.
is still identifiable as a Benz from the front.
And that is true. He really does drive a Benz because people
You could
did not
take-
believe that Martell had an Audi.
Yeah, there was. I got
That is parked outside in the snow. What are
It
you
is.
doing to that poor
Yeah,
car?
I made the same.
He made
I
the
pulled
same.
in and went, what the?
So, whatever car I'm driving gets parked in the garage typically.
You're so weird, man. I love you to
No,
death.
so the problem is right now I hurt my back last week,
Okay.
and
What's that have to do with parking your really nice car outside and putting your hootie mall crawler in the garage?
because it's easier to get in and out of the truck, and that's what I'm driving right now, and I don't want to have to go out and scrape.
I mean, I get that, but make your wife park outside like a man.
Have you met Liz?
I have.
She will rip my head off and shit down my neck.
You think his back hurts now? Just wait till she's flogging him.
Oh, man.
The cat of nine tails. Like, what did you just?
Cat of
make
nine
us say?
tails.
That's racist.
She'll
You
take
can't
a-
flog people anymore.
Yeah, that's not racist.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. That's medieval.
Yeah, it's racist against old white dudes.
No, it's not.
Well, I really think that old white guys can stand to absorb a little bit of racism at this point.
Don't tell them that. They are not aware.
Well,
They'd be like, I don't even know what this is. See, that's the thing. They wouldn't know what to call
What is this I'm feeling right
it. Like,
now?
exactly. Why do I feel so discriminated against?
I'm still waiting for my white privilege to kick in.
I've never, ever dealt with this before.
DJ's
But-
got the best of both worlds.
He does. He does.
He gets to drive a Benz because he's half black, but he looks so white that he gets all the privilege.
I know.
I'm the undercover brother for sure.
It's awesome.
Incognito.
You, you're like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder or whatever, Tropic Storm, whatever.
What do you mean, you
Reverse.
people? What do you mean, you people?
The best part is, my favorite part ever is when I get to introduce people to DJ, because I always say my black friend DJ's coming. They're like, why do you say your black friend? I was like, because he's black. And then he shows up,
And they're like,
and they
what?
look at me like,
I thought you said
this. Yeah, I'm like, that's DJ. He's black.
they just don't get the joke. They're
At
like,
all. It's so funny to me.
I don't
Or
understand.
I'll say he's mixed or like half black or something. They're like, why do you even say that?
When I was
And
when I was in 8th grade, I elected to go to not I went to Sherwood Middle School, and typically where I lived, I would end up going to Walnut Ridge High School. But I wanted to go to Fort Hays, which is downtown, and in Columbus Public Schools, you can get in through a lottery. So 8th grade, I had applied for and been accepted at Fort Hays, and they were like, well, you need to come do your high school orientation, which was on a different day than Walnut Ridge's because it's not the same school.
Right.
So, and it's downtown, so my dad had to come get me out of school and drive me down to Fort Hays so we could do high school orientation. So they come take me out of class, and my dad and I are walking down the hallway, and one of my buddies is out in the hall because he was one of those dudes that gets in trouble all the time.
And they moved his desk out to the hallway?
No, it's not his desk, but he was just like,
Just
the teacher's like, get out of my class, go stand in the hallway. So he was like, man, what's up? And I was like, what's up, man? And so we were like walking down, and he was like, hey, man. And he just kind of looked at me, and I told Dad, I was like, hey, head on downstairs. I'll be there in a second. And I walked over, and I was like, what's up? And he was like, are you in trouble? And I was like, nah, man, what's up? And he was like, is that like your PO or something?
Are you being kidnapped by that black dude?
And I was like, my PO, and for folks who
You mean my parental officer?
no, yeah, folks who didn't grow up in the hood might not know that means parole officer. And I was like, bruh, like that's my dad, man. Like, and he was like, oh, my bad. And I was like, dang, man. Eli is a good friend of mine, and you guys know as well. We first met, and Mark Midius introduced us, and Mark.
God, I haven't seen Mark in forever.
Yeah, Mark made it a point to mention, like, hey, DJ's a black guy, right? That's something that nobody knows, except that everybody is like, that's the first thing they all talk about. Like, he doesn't look black, but. And
well, I mean, you have to, because it's not like you don't look black. It's like you look the opposite of black.
Sure,
you look
right.
so far
Yeah.
not black.
You look Irish.
Yeah, I picture him in a kill.
You mean Irie, like Jamaican?
No, like you are pasty white.
Like ivory.
It's true. But so Eli and I became good friends, and like for the first year, he'd be like, "Man, you're not. I don't believe you." And I was like, "It's true." I mean, like we became friends sort of like before MySpace and Facebook were around, and you had pictures of your family like all up on the internet everywhere. And so finally, I like had a picture of my dad and me, and he was like, "Oh, wow, man, he's like, all right, that's cool." Like, so he finally kind of came around to believe in me. And then like 4 or 5 years after we became friends, he met my father, and it was good. And then we sat back down, and my dad had walked off, and Eli looks at me and goes, "Damn, man." He's like, "Your dad is black." And I was like, "Motherfucker, like, we had this conversation like 5 years ago." And he was like, "Well, yeah." And I was like, "You said you believed me." And he was like, "Well, I mean, I believed you, but I didn't like believe you." I'm like,
He was like, I just couldn't say no because it's a black thing, and if I say that's not your dad, I'm racist.
and he was like, "You guys look a lot alike." And I was like, "Yeah, except that like he's in Technicolor and I'm like just, over here grayscale."
You guys side by side make up your own black and white photo.
It's true.
So you and I had the same conversation,
DJ's had this
Yeah.
conversation with
I mean-
literally everybody
like,
he's
yeah,
met.
seriously.
but it didn't take 4 or 5 years. You just pulled a picture and be like, "That's me and my dad."
It's
Right.
his business card now.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, "Nah, you're
He literally
adopted."
just has a picture of him and his dad and says, "I'm DJ Bass. This is my father." And that's his business card. He hands out to people when he meets them.
Yeah. And,
It's easier that way.
so on the subject of business cards, this is another interesting thing. So like DJ, my name is Daryl Jared Bass. I go by DJ. Dad's name is Daryl. I got the middle name because they didn't want to call me like Little Daryl, right? So
Little D.
yeah, nobody wants to be the little D. Like the little D is not the D that you want.
If you're going to be a
She
D,
was.
you want to be the big D.
That's right.
And I don't mean dollars.
So I tell people my name is DJ Bass, and they're like, "Okay, that's cool, whatever." And nobody thinks anything of it until I hand them a business card that says DJ Bass, and then they read it and they're like, "Wait a minute,
Is that your stage name?
exactly?" They're sitting like DJ Bass.
He would go along with our
What?
new intro. Yo, it's DJ Bass up in the house.
Yeah, yep, I heard it.
You hear the intro?
He played it for me. It was I was digging it. And then I was like,
Everybody's digging that new intro.
listening to
is.
you complain. I legit looked at Martelle and was like, man, he is so white.
That's fair.
Such a cracker.
That's fair. I won't argue that. The thing is, I actually didn't hate it. It just caught me off guard because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I didn't know we were really recording. I thought he was just screwing with me. So he hits record and plays that music, and I'm like, what's going on? And he hits record as soon as he starts.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It was.
This is BPC, and I'm thinking, oh, Martel's just being dumb.
No warning whatsoever.
Yeah, so when he was like, this is our new intro, I'm like, no, it's not. He's like, no, it is. I'm like, I thought he was just like BSing me.
Nope.
And then he's like, no, it really is. I was like, okay. Like, I mean, it just totally threw me off guard. I don't care. It's not bad.
If you took a picture of the three of us and said, one of these kids is half black, every single person would point at Randy.
Point at Randy.
Absolutely,
say,
especially if I pick my hair
It's
out.
him. It's him. It's totally him.
I mean, I've got a picture of me rocking a full-on fro.
We've had this conversation in chat box, but I'm like, Randy's got range. Like, Randy's like Sean Connery, right? He's got a.
That's the
Sean
best
Connery's
compliment
got
you've ever given me.
Sean Connery's got that like that accent and that look, but like, and it never changes. But he's British as James Bond. He's like Russian as Marco Ramius. He's been like Irish.
Yep.
He's been American.
Yeah.
It's like nothing changes, but he can just
That's kind
be
of, I never
whoever.
thought of that.
He just does it.
And Randy, like if you look at Randy, you could be like, well, you know, maybe he's Native American, maybe he's African American, maybe he's like Middle Eastern.
Pull some Middle Eastern,
he could
especially
be-
with those tattoos around his wrists.
He could even be like Eastern European, like Ukrainian or something.
Yep.
Like,
Especially in the summer, if I get tan, then it really kind of opens up the spectrum of
Randy is
Pandora's box.
of TSA selections I can be part of.
right. Randy seriously could play any role, except maybe like just stock white dudes.
Yeah.
Except for,
Nobody would believe
except
that.
for the Irish-looking guy with the black dad.
Like-
Could not fill that role.
I'd be like, he could be in the Italian mafia, come across as a South American.
I just got to slick my
Somebody
hair
be
back,
like,
man.
Randy at BYU, and everybody's looking at him like, what the hell's that guy doing?
Get him.
It's like,
Get him.
get the rope.
He's got a box cutter. Get him.
Oh, man. What do we... Okay, so obviously we don't have anything planned here, but DJ and I have some questions for you.
Oh,
What's
no.
your opinion on? So we were part of this chat yesterday, and we're going to ask questions without giving our input until you answer, because we don't want biased answers.
Okay.
A lot of car guys got into a discussion yesterday. One person claimed, now we know you love the Supra,
Supra's a nice car.
the MK4 Supra,
Yep.
6-speed, turbocharged, great
Yep.
platform, right?
I like Mark's car because it's very, very rare.
I've not seen, I don't know of a Supra that I don't like that unless it's riced out, you know, like an automatic non-turbo with a giant wing. Bleh.
Yeah.
But a real Supra done by a real car guy, I love them. They're one of the most iconic cars, I think, especially of our generation.
Yeah, definitely in
You
the
know.
90s, for sure.
Definitely,
And
yeah.
So the discussion came up where somebody claimed it was a supercar. So I want you to define, give me first off just the definition of supercar to you.
So I would not.
Don't worry about the Supra. Just
Okay.
define supercar.
So supercar to me would come from the factory.
As most cars do.
Well, right.
That's where they start life.
So supercar would come
But
from.
you mean from the factory already?
It's we're talking. It's going to be more of a higher end vehicle,
Okay.
specialty. Think Lamborghini, Ferrari. It's not going to be something that the common person is going to be able to purchase.
Okay, so high price.
So higher priced. It's not going to be. It's going to be limited in production.
Okay, so rare.
So it's going to be rare.
Limited.
Limited.
Maybe not rare, but limited.
Not so much higher in horsepower.
Okay.
Because that's not. I wouldn't consider that a factor in the supercar arena, but it's going to be somewhat faster. It's going to. I mean, it's going to have technology in it that
Performance based.
So, like, you know,
that most cars aren't going to have.
Right. Disclaimer: we're like when we speak supercar, like, you know, sort of as a more sort of general. We're not talking about like Like we're talking sports cars,
Right, we're
not
talking sports
about
cars.
Like, hey, there's a super rare Bentley.
Well,
like that's okay.
There's a 2000 Mercedes Benz with the ornament still on the hood.
Right. Well, in
Like,
that
whoa, I
super,
see one of this.
not expensive, but very rare.
in that supercar range, yeah, Bentley can be in there. I mean, they've got the coupe.
Okay, so
Bentley can be in there.
Okay,
and then the Phantom Ghost.
sure, okay.
I mean, we can consider that a supercar. I mean, that thing's got 600 and some horsepower.
I'm not replying.
So-
This is all Martel's opinion. So
This
I'm
is-
not saying yes or no on any of these.
So
things. Go ahead.
those could be considered. I'm not saying they are, but they could be considered
In the discussion
in
of.
the discussion of
Okay.
a supercar.
Okay. So
So they're
that's kind of your
I'm
best
giving it
bet.
more of an umbrella kind of
Gotcha.
in
So
the
let me-
supercar.
Let me
So
ask you this now. Well, go ahead.
if I'm going to name
Yes, I was going to say, name me some supercars.
name the
Just off the top
supercars.
of
So
your
now
head.
we're going with higher end Ferraris, higher end like the Huron, Lamborghinis, the
Hurricane.
Huracan, whatever
That's
the.
awesome.
Yeah.
Now back in the 80s, 90s, we got the Countachs and the Diablos, Testarossas.
You just like the song
I do.
Testarossa. That's
That's a great song.
Look, I love the car.
No, it is, but
and I love the song.
It's like I just love it because he finds a way to reference it like once a week at least. I'm not mad about it. I love it.
And so we've got we've got those cars. We've got you've got the Bentley S Coupe. You've got the Rolls Royce Phantom. I don't know that I would actually consider those supercars more. Or
They're higher end.
They're
I consider
higher end
those
cars.
luxury performance cars,
But they're-
performance luxury cars.
Yeah,
So,
but if you want to get in, but then at the same time, well, they're not really. They don't come from the factory, but you've got that K car that runs. I mean,
like tens, yeah.
tens.
Giant K car.
Yeah, and you've got that stupid ass 6-speed fucking Caravan.
So what you're saying is that like
So
some supercars are born and some are made.
right.
Okay.
So now hold on.
But I put the disclaimer out there that it had to come from the factory
I was
as
gonna
a
say, That's what I was
supercar.
about to say. He said it has to come from the factory as a supercar.
All right, so-
let me ask my next question, then I'll let you
Okay.
go. Is that fair?
So the Supra, because that's what this discussion started as.
Right.
The Supra,
Factory
I
Supra.
would not consider the factory Supra a supercar. The car came from the factory, 200 and some horsepower ish,
Yeah,
Let me
I think
Google
it was
it.
close to 300. I think
close to 300. I
But
would
like
not
a lot for the early 90s.
for the early 90s.
Yeah.
Yes, it.
I mean, I think the Testarossa only had like 300 horsepower.
But I would not consider. Yeah, but I would not consider
But
the.
again, he's got other qualifiers.
Sure.
I mean-
No, I'm solely just kind of
Right.
saying that like we got to kind of look at the cars in context of the time that they're built, right?
Right.
So like there was no Hellcat Charger coming from the factory in the
No.
80s or 90s with 707 horsepower. It was like the
It-
big dog cars were like 300, 400, like the top line cars were like maybe 400 horsepower.
Right, and so I don't know that I would consider, but the Supra had a price point of
It was
It was
45.
44.
44,500.
I mean,
which
that's obtainable.
Well,
in
in today's dollars,
it's 76,000.
yeah.
Okay,
We had this was
We
a
actually
lengthy
did
all day
that. Yeah, it
discussion.
was
I mean-
all day long.
but even then,
So I'm saying 76,000 in today's dollars. That's not near the price of getting you
no,
a high end a Bugatti.
no,
You know
Nope,
what I'm
nope,
saying?
nope. So back then, even for 40,000, that's somewhat still obtainable. To, I mean, if that's the case, then
It's more obtainable to the common man.
right, that's putting my S5 in the supercar range. Then
Yeah, that's. I
Okay,
mean, that's
so-
like that's today's Corvette range.
right. That's
so,
so I would not consider. I mean, taking if 40,000 then is putting that car in a supercar range, then that's putting my S5
sure.
in supercar range then.
Right, right.
And it's not a supercar. I mean, it's
Right.
an all-wheel drive, 333 horsepower supercharged V6.
Okay, so I did look it up. We were all wrong on the horsepower. The horsepower of a 94 Supra with the turbo from the factory was 320.
320. Okay.
Okay.
So
Not bad.
not bad,
Especially in
but
1994, like you said.
Right.
I mean, that's-
No, that's very good.
but I would not put that in the supercar range.
okay, so
Personally.
a couple things. Somebody made the point yesterday, and I think it's a good one. That well, let me walk that back a second. So, like, my sort of argument throughout the whole thing, I don't know if argument's the right word, but my point, my postulation was that the term supercar is ill-defined.
Absolutely.
Randy actually like looked up the Wikipedia sort of definition of supercar, and the sort of the overarching tenets are that it has to be a sports car that is fast, and it has to be rare in appearance and also in production and cost, and that it has to be sexy. Okay. Right. And they were in so many words, right? There were several different definitions, but that's kind of what they all boiled down to.
Right.
And I was saying that I personally agree that the 94 Supra doesn't sort of fall under the supercar category. However, I also think that that is totally subjective, and somebody had posted a poll up, and there were, I think by the last time I checked, there were 22 answers that said no, it's not a supercar, and 8 or 9 that said, yeah.
You want to know the current standings on that?
Yeah, what is it?
8 for yes, it is a supercar still. 40 for no.
Okay,
so it took a big swing overnight.
Well, again, I'll say that the wording of the poll is probably swinging the results a little bit, because the way the poll is worded is, A, is the Supra a supercar, or B, is it just a damn Toyota and Kerry is a moron?
Here's the way. I'll read it verbatim.
I was like, there's a lot of people that are just going to vote no because they think Kerry's a moron.
Because they think Kerry's a moron.
Is a 1994 Toyota a supercar, or is Kerry an effing moron? Is how the title was. Right. And I see what you're saying. I think though, using the fact that people are discussing it, I don't think it's as swayed. Because they're coming in and making their point that they understand.
There needs to be an option C. It was both.
Both.
Kerry is a moron.
And one of the major things that I did try to look up as many definitions as I can. Everything that I saw written by people who write about cars for a living, everything that I saw as a definition, none of them mention a Supra as a supercar.
Sure.
Okay, so everyone that I looked at that talked about sports cars said the Supra is one of the greatest sports cars of the 90s, maybe ever.
Sure.
Which I agree with. So that was kind of my stance, was in the one article that I'm going to read, something DJ put up from the Wikipedia page, says during the late 20th century, the term supercar was used to describe a very expensive, which Martelle said, fast or powerful car, doesn't say how much, it doesn't say insane, with a centrally located engine, which the Supra doesn't have, and stated it in more general terms, it must be very fast with sporting handling to match. So that goes back to the performance.
Right.
It should be sleek and eye-catching. We talk about it being sexy. And its price should be one in a rarefied atmosphere of its own. And correct. DJ put, the only thing the Supra isn't is priced in a rarefied atmosphere of its own.
Right.
Which you mentioned.
Yep.
Right.
So my response was, okay, so if we say that it is to be a very expensive, fast, powerful car with a centrally located engine, it has to be have the handling to match. It should be sleek and eye-catching. It has to be crazy expensive. Well, the Supra doesn't match all those qualifications, and therefore, by definition, it's a supercar. That was my stance.
Sure.
And then I got called a slew of names, and people were mad at me, I was saying my opinion's right and yours wrong, and all I was trying to say was, according to what we're talking about, and people are quoting as the definition, the Supra just doesn't match it. It's fast, it's sporty, and here's my biggest thing too. Right now, today, or in 1994, especially before Fast and Furious came out, if you drove a Toyota Supra of any model, trim level, to a very high-end restaurant downtown, or you go to the Ram in Dublin, which is a nice place, and I use the Ram because the only time I went there was a Lambo sitting outside of it. So you pull up in a Supra, car guys are going to take notice. You would notice it. Martelle, I'd notice it.
Yeah.
I love the Supra. But most people, they see a sporty-looking car, it's kind of sexy. You pull up in a Lambo, folks start taking pictures of your car.
Right.
There's a different level of a supercar is in a class that's all its own, and the Supra just doesn't match that. I get that people are saying it's a supercar to me, and that's fine. You're allowed to have that opinion. But all I'm saying is that if we say there are these standards and the Supra meets all of them except one, it doesn't qualify.
Well, so that right there, you're hitting on exactly what my point was. And again, I agree that the Supra probably does not fall into that category. But my whole side of the argument was that those definitions are too subjective. They're not quantifiable in any way. I mean, as I said yesterday, if you tell me, if you give me measurables, if you say, okay, a supercar has to meet these 4 things. It has to be A, more than $150,000 to buy in today's dollars and whatever day you're in. B, it has to have a top speed of more than 200 miles per hour. C, it has to come in either a manual or a DCT, like a shiftable automatic, a truly shiftable automatic. And D, it has to have a drag coefficient of less than
X.
Yeah, some measurable, right? Meaning that it's sleek and sexy. It's not shaped like a brick,
right?
And if there were actual measurables out there, I'd be like, okay, great. We very clearly can define what a supercar is and what a supercar is not.
So you're not saying it is or isn't just because you don't think there is a set list of rules.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, if you say, okay, well, if it's a supercar, it has to be fast, sexy, and expensive. I'm like, all right, well,
what
in my mind,
fast, sexy, and expensive?
Right? In my mind, a Charger Hellcat is a supercar because it's it's $80,000 brand new, which to me is expensive.
Yeah,
it is fast as shit, and I think it looks good, right? But but to some dude who's driving Aventadors and Huracans and F40s, he's looking at a Charger Hellcat get that plebe shit away from me,
right?
That's for the pros. I'm bougie. So,
which that right there is part of my point. You don't find the rappers and the NBA stars going out and buying Supras.
Not Supras, no. But Challenger
besides the fact
Hellcats.
they're not made. But
yeah, sure.
And I do agree that I understand what you're saying, and that you're saying, look, there's no way to say this is or isn't a supercar because it doesn't say it has to be exactly more than 200. It has to be exactly 150,000. But you've also got to think that you can't say, okay, any supercar is any car over 150,000 because 50 years from now, your classic sedan could be 150. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
I think for a definition, saying the fact that it says one in a rarefied atmosphere of its own is a way of saying, look, a $44,000 Supra or $76,000 car is not rarefied.
Okay.
Right. So I say there are quantifiable definitions. They just don't list the exact number because that can always change as far as price goes.
Sure.
That's what I'm looking at.
Here's something from Jalopnik, and they've tried to categorize a supercar from a hypercar.
Or an exotic, yeah.
So here is the category that they've given a supercar. The power. It must be 800 to 1,200 horsepower and a top speed of 200 to 250 miles per hour. The price must be $250,000 to $999,000. So just under $1 million. Exclusivity or rarity must be under 200,000 2,000 produced.
I'll say 200,000. Geez,
yeah, that's a lot.
under
Civic. Under 2,000 produced, and technical and design novelty must have weird opening doors.
Okay, so even by Jalopnik's definition, which is what they wrote, this is our standard.
They're trying to
the Supra's not even close, to any of that.
So hypercars. Okay. So it just leads to the next category of a hypercar, and then after hypercars are mega cars, and so a hypercar, the power must be 1,201 to 2,000 horsepower with a top speed of 250 miles per hour to 300 miles per hour.
I can't even fathom owning a car that can do.
I'm trying to think of any car that comes like that from the factory, like maybe the Veyron.
Well, so.
Anyways, go ahead. You keep reading, Martelle.
Price $1 million to $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Exclusivity and rarity under 1,000 produced. Technical and design novelty must have weird opening doors.
Mm-hmm.
And at least one bit of cutting edge engine tech, Kearns, camless, drive valve train, variable determining, cylinders, etc. Now, mega cars, power must be 2,000 to 3,000 horsepower, top speed of 301 to 350 miles per hour.
Top fuel dragster.
Yeah.
Right. Price tag of $5.1 million to $20 million. Exclusivity and rarity under 200 produced. Technical design must have weird opening doors.
Or no doors at all.
Or no doors at all.
You get into the cockpit.
You just hood slide that thing and get in the windows like Bo and Luke Duke.
When the engine classification is jet. You don't worry about doors.
Exactly.
You phase in.
Has an ejection seat.
and at least one bit of cutting technology, turns, camless, blah, 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 blah. There was another site that I looked at that I forgot to open a tab for, but they had listed out they'd list out, okay, here's a list of supercars, here's a list of hypercars, here's a list of...
Right. So, well, I've got the top... I just looked up the fastest cars in the world as of 2018. So the top few is the Hennessy Venom F5 at 301 mile an hour. Supercar. Okay. That meets that definition.
Sure. So do we consider Hennessy
that's just like that's a Mustang that's been like...
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do we consider Hennessy a manufacturer, or is he just a modifier?
Well, I mean, if it might not.
No,
what you just read, Martelle doesn't sort of reference like it having come from the factory that way. So,
right.
like that can easily be talking about cars that have been like modified to those levels.
Right. Fair enough. I just looked up. I didn't look up fastest. I looked up fastest production cars is what I googled. And Hennessy takes 2 of the top 3 spots.
Right, because they just take a car like a Viper or a Mustang or a Raptor and modify the hell out of it.
You've also got 2 Bugattis in the top 5. The Saline S7 twin turbo.
Yep.
I don't put. I consider these all supercars.
So
I cannot with any measurable or anybody's definition that they've given me. I can't look at a Supra in the same light.
So yeah,
granted, it can be expensive to somebody else, but to me, his S5 is expensive. That doesn't make it a supercar.
Sure. No,
I drive a $150 truck.
No argument here.
In Martelle, even he didn't tell me how much, but he got a great deal on that S5.
I paid $20,000 for it.
That's a good deal.
That's a hell of a deal for it.
That's a pretty good deal.
So anyway, here's a list of hypercars.
He paid it all in wooden nickels.
I paid it with teeth that I found in the wall.
Teeth that they told you not to use?
I put them under my pillow and got my quarters from the tooth fairy.
I'm not even going down that
road. My brain failed me. I was trying to think of something witty right there, and I came up with nothing.
That's odd for you.
It was a swing and a miss.
So, hypercars. Bugatti, the Chiron, the Veyron, and then the Ferrari FXX Enzo, which is not even street legal.
Right, sure.
So, does that... I mean,
that doesn't mean it's not a supercar.
That doesn't mean it's not a supercar. Right. These are examples of hypercars. The LaFerrari. Now they do have the Hennessy Viper GT listed.
LaFerrari is Spanish for the Ferrari.
Right.
You don't know that.
The Jaguar XJ220, Koenigsegg, 2 Koenigsegg's, the Lamborghini.
We're having technical difficulties because Diesel's trying to
get out.
Technical. This is like animal
rape.
Go lay down, dog.
You. Go lay down, Diesel.
This is great for an audio pod, for an audio show.
An audio pod. Welcome to the audio pod.
You need to post some pictures of Diesel up so the
people can see
how
exactly
what it is that we're dealing with.
Lumbering he is.
Horse that you've got in your room with us.
He just looks sad when you called him a horse.
He's a horse. He got into a bar fight with some coyotes the other night, so he's got some wounds. Lamborghini Aventador Roadster.
You just confused. DJ's like, wait, that's another story.
No,
we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
We've got more Lamborghinis. We got Maseratis. We got Maybachs. We got McLarens. We got Mercedes, the CLK, GTR, AMG. Okay. We've got tons of cars here that are, and then for supercars, we've got the NSX. We've got Aston Martin V12 Vantage. We've got Vanquishes.
Okay, so hold up. Wait. Let's stop right there for a second. Now, you mentioned the NSX.
Yes.
All right. So the NSX,
that is the new one.
Okay, so but let's walk it back a little bit. Let's hop in the Wayback Machine and go talk about the 90s. So Acura wasn't really it was kind of a thing, but the NSX was Honda's sort of flagship sports car.
Yep.
The Supra was Toyota's flagship sports
car. Yep.
Correct.
And then you had the R33, R34 Skylines, which were Nissan's sort of flagship sports car, even though they weren't sold here in America. But that was clearly, we had the Fairlady Z, I think. So that was sort of one.
You also had the Sylvia,
right? So those were some of the questions that we were talking about. Again, since we're talking about the 90s,
yep.
Right?
Those are just sports cars.
Yeah. So but right there, if the new NSX is listed as a supercar, would you consider the old NSX as being a supercar for its time? I mean, nowadays, right? It doesn't hardly hold up, except in rarity.
I would it would only be classified in rarity, but not in anything else. It didn't it didn't. In my mind, it doesn't clear the the supercar price.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't clear. It only had 200 horsepower.
252.
Yeah,
252.
Right. It was more of a. It was definitely more of like
It was a novelty.
a handling type car.
Yeah, it was. What, mid-engine?
And it was mid-engine, right? I think.
It was a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive,
Right.
novelty act.
Okay.
I mean, it didn't. It had maybe a $40,000 to $50,000 price tag on it.
No.
I thought it was
No?
much more than that.
In 1991 alone, it was just shy of 90,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So-
looked it up
Which
'cause I was
would have
trying to
made
figure
it-
out the cost too.
Which would make it very expensive in today. Like that's $150,000 in today's
Easy.
money, probably.
I
Okay.
can check that out too.
So, I don't know. It's to me, I wasn't a fan of it then. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's just me being biased towards hating
Well,
it.
I think that's the point, right?
So-
of the whole conversation is that you get to with this, you're kind of making your own. Everybody's got a list, right? But you're kind of making your own determination as to like whether or not you personally believe that car falls under that category or not. So like the Skyline. If you saw a Skyline in America back then, you would be like, "Oh my god!" I mean, I remember when.
Well, it's rare, but is it a supercar?
Well, I remember when. Oh shoot, I can't think of the guy's name who owned the internet company. Do you remember him?
Bacon.
Yeah, Kyle Bacon. That's right. Had an R34 Skyline brought over. Like he bought one, a JDM one, had it brought over, had it like California
Emissions
tested,
certified, yep.
certified. It ended up costing him a mint. Not that he didn't have the money, but like, and I remember the first time he rolled that out to like one of the CR meets. I mean, it was like it was as if somebody had showed up in a Lambo.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and for the record, there was a dude that would occasionally show up in a Lambo, and his car didn't get nearly the love
Well,
that
again,
that
though-
Skyline
Well, that
did.
Skyline's a rarity, though. I mean,
Right, that's the thing. We went to
that's
a lot of
more
car
than-
shows this year, Dad and I, and my brother. We saw a ton of the shoebox Chevys, the 55 to 57s. We saw a ton of the early 50s Chevy trucks. We saw a ton of the normals, the old Mustangs, Chargers, Challengers, and all this. And some of the coolest cars that drew the biggest crowds were the rare British crap that you never saw in your whole life. But it was a piece of junk, and the guy's like, yeah, it's worth
Old
$4,000.
school Aston Martins and
Just
stuff.
because it draws a big crowd and it's rare doesn't make it a supercar. It makes it a cool car,
Okay.
but JP's car, when he builds a Colt that runs sub 10 seconds for under $3,000, that's a cool car. It's going to draw a crowd because people want to know what's under the hood. People want to know, how does this thing stay together? How does it run a 9-second quarter mile?
Yeah, I don't.
Car guys do, but it's not a supercar.
When you are
It's a
duct
death
taping
trap.
and zip tying a car together and it goes nines, there's something.
And he
wrong.
survived that crash in one of those things, man.
Something so very, very wrong.
all right, I will classify the 1990s NSX as a supercar for what it is.
I would say that the NSX,
The rare-
if somebody would argue to me that the NSX is a supercar and the Supra isn't, or say if we had to put one in each category, that's how I would align them.
What about
Right.
the Ford GT500? Does that count?
Yeah, as a supercar,
Yeah.
based on price, rarity, horsepower, technology,
Okay. Just because it's got the weird opening doors.
and weird opening doors.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, maybe
the
new ones
NSX
don't. I think the old ones did.
for the time, the price, rarity.
The GT500 or the GT40?
The car that was made, I thought it was the GT500, not the Mustang variant, but like the car that was custom made to like beat Ferrari.
Yeah, you're talking
Yeah,
GT40.
the GT40.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
that is
okay.
a supercar.
Yeah, that is a supercar. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Mustang, when you say GT500, I went Mustang. That's a Saline.
Yeah,
No, you're thinking
Okay,
the
no, I'm
GT40,
thinking
which
of
is
the
now,
GT40.
the newer ones are just the Ford GT is what it's called.
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, based on what I just looked up,
All right.
the 90s NSX technology.
What you're talking, I mean, even then,
it's-
the NSX versus the Supra, the NSX has the engine in the right place, right? There was less
Per the-
production. Here's the other thing, too. As far as I know, they did not make an automatic slow version of the NSX,
No.
right? So that's
don't
another
think so.
thing to me. And then the price is more than double.
Right.
So-
of the Supra, you mean? Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the NSX is definitely something I could say, yeah, that's a supercar.
Yeah, I would put that in the supercar.
Then I know
range.
that's
I hate them.
That's going to piss off a lot of people if they listen to this. But
Who cares?
I don't care.
But the
again,
Supra's not is just a sports car.
So everything I've been shown, and I understand that they're like, well, it's subjective. Everything's subjective if you want to make it subjective. Anything can be subjective. But given what I've read, based on riders, based on racers, based on car builders, based on companies, Jalopnik, everything I've been shown, it doesn't say it has to be 150,000 or 100,000 or 250,000 maybe. But when it says rare, price, and an atmosphere of its own, that pretty much, when something's in an atmosphere of its own, it's astronomical.
Yeah.
Nobody looks at $76,000 today as astronomical for a vehicle because, like you said, we have so many production vehicles. We have pickup trucks that are hitting that range.
Well, yeah, you
know what I'm
can't.
saying?
You
So
can't buy a pickup truck that's almost out of that range.
It's hard to find one.
Yeah, it
It's hard,
used to be
the base model pickups now are what, 45 new?
close. Yeah,
For like the most stripped down version you can find?
Okay, let me just. I'm going to ask you a question, and you guys let me know. I'm gonna like just read off the specs of a car, one of today's cars, and I want you to tell me if you guys think it's a supercar or not, without knowing what it is.
Ooh,
all right. So
good idea, DJ.
all right. So 600 horsepower.
okay.
It's a 4,000 pound car.
That's not very light, but
Does not come in a manual. Is street legal.
I already know what car you're talking
The
about.
range, the cost range is anywhere from $100,000 to $175,000, depending upon which package that you purchase.
All right.
It does not have weird opening doors.
That one out.
Well,
not- it's
but
not
that's the
supercar.
thing. We have to say, are we going by that definition or not? 'Cause we are the no. It doesn't
right.
meet all the qualifiers.
It does.
It does meet jalapenics.
It does have
That's what I'm
some-
saying.
Yeah.
It does have some tricky engine management stuff going on. So, like, it does have quite a bit of cool technology in the vehicle, and it's a 2-door, but it has 4 seats.
What kind of Porsche are we talking about here?
Nope, it's not a Porsche.
Not a Porsche.
It's not a Porsche.
It's one of 2 cars.
Okay, well, without naming the car,
Okay.
let me know if you think that, like, based upon
So we're
those
saying
specs-
100 to 175 grand, which
Yep.
I would say that puts us up there with some of the Lambos and Ferraris that we said.
Well,
are.
I mean, like what he said was like 250 and above, right?
250 and above is that's
supercar
jalapenics.
range.
Per
Okay, so
yeah.
if
Per-
we're going to say
per
then
jalapenics.
we need to decide if we're doing this as a group
Well, I'm asking
or
for
as individuals.
as individual. I'm just asking you.
We
your
have to
opinion.
define for ourselves.
Yeah,
Do we agree that 250 makes? Because if not, right off the bat, the price disqualifies.
sure.
Yeah.
So
It
like,
just makes it a very cool sports car.
I'm just asking you
Which
two
is what the Supra
individually. If I said to you, I've got a car, it's
That
for
brand
you.
new is 100,
Brand new,
175 grand,
yeah.
600 horsepower. It's got 4 seats but 2 doors that don't open weird. It's only coming in automatic.
Yeah,
It's got to be one of 2 cars. And I don't know if I'd put either one of them in supercar class if it's what I'm thinking. I'm not going to say, but I don't think none of what you said in and of itself makes me think Bugatti. Makes me think Murcielago or
okay, sure. Right.
So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
yeah. So like,
none of
so
that.
it definitely, yeah. All right. So
I'm
like,
gonna put
you're
it in
looking
a
at
very
probably
high-end
like it's
sports
not
car.
exotic,
right.
I'm going to put it in a sports car range. I mean, it's not that price point is not exotic.
Okay.
Exotic is
Can I guess what you were reading about?
Sure.
Was it a GTR?
It is. It is. So like that's the
yeah. The GTR is not a. I would not classify that as a supercar.
What I was trying to
Yeah.
get at though is that
It can be subjective.
if I tell you that like we're talking about a Nissan, you're almost instantly going to be like, nope.
Yeah, there's
Right.
a bias that comes with
You
it.
know what I mean?
agree with you.
Right.
So like, but if I had told you, oh, that's actually a Ferrari model.
I would say it's a lower end Ferrari.
Right.
yeah,
It,
it's a
it might
lower
be
car.
exactly. It might be a
Yeah.
lower end Ferrari, but it might also qualify as supercar because it's not like a Ferrari. Ferrari's
But-
not making Civics.
no,
You
but
know?
but the Ferrari California, I would not classify as a supercar.
Sure. Okay. Or
That's-
the, or the
yeah.
360 or Modena or something
Right.
like that. Like
Right,
they have
exactly.
like sort of like
So you can have companies that do make supercars that also make good sports cars for the poor rich people. you
Right.
know?
exactly the
So yeah,
30K millionaires.
Right.
I mean, Porsche
33K
makes they make supercars and then they make their
Boxsters, right.
Boxsters.
Yeah.
And they make their
They make cars that
their
you get
low
2
level
years
911s
old that
and
are,
but then
you
they
know,
have their
pocket change.
their
Sure.
GT3s and their GT4s that are
Insane.
just
I
crazy.
can't fit in one, I don't think, but they are awesome to watch.
Sure. I mean, I just
I don't consider the GTR. Here's the thing: our buddy Jordan, who owns a car lot, he owns a GTR.
several of them
And
actually.
yeah, well, so he owns a GTRs, yar, and he said in chat box, and I'm going by memory here, so I don't mean to misquote if I do, but he said, "I own a GTR or GTRs," and now his is heavily modified too, right? But
Yeah, he's over 1,000 horsepower.
right, he said, "I consider mine a supercar, but I get why nobody else does. It's kind of how he said it.
Yeah.
So even the guy that owns it, and then we had a guy in there that owned a 94 twin turboed 6-speed Supra.
And he's like, no.
And he's like, this is not a supercar. And then everybody's like, not everybody. Some people are arguing it is, and I'm sitting here going, nothing that anybody has shown me qualifies it as a supercar.
Right.
No, I mean, building a supercar, like taking a GTR and making
is
it
a
over
supercar, or is it a really sick built sports car?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Building, air quotes, building a supercar, taking a GTR, making it over 1,000 horsepower, putting it in supercar range, like all the specs of the engine of a supercar and the speed and all of that. Building it, it's still not a supercar. It's fast. You've got a fast ass sports car.
You got a sick sports car.
Okay.
That's how I agree with you 100%, Martelle.
All right, cool. I mean, like, I don't disagree.
You're not really taking sides.
I'm
You're
not-
saying, like,
yeah,
I personally think Supra's not, but I can see why people think it is.
Exactly.
I mean, I understand.
your
Here's my
point of view,
thing.
right.
I'm the only one in the whole thread and in chat box yesterday that even mentioned the term sports car until I'd said it 10 times and somebody said, well, some supercars are built on sports car
chassis.
And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean all sports cars are supercars.
Right.
Kind of like we talk about bourbons and whiskeys.
Right.
Just because it starts as a supercar and then they go, okay, we're putting better suspension, better engine, lighter body, blah, blah, blah. Now we have a supercar doesn't mean the lower model sports car becomes a supercar.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The way the conversation got kicked off was that the new Supra was like, there's a new Supra Mark V that's been developed by
If you want to call
Toyota.
it a Supra.
Been developed by Toyota and BMW jointly.
Right.
And some pictures got released yesterday.
Yeah.
And so folks were talking about it. And we, in the chat box, we were talking about that. And I kind of made the offhand comment that, like, the Mark V Supra has been available for years. It was just badged as a Lexus called the LFA.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just sort of my opinion that, like, the LFA is the spiritual successor to the Mark IV Supra.
Which I like that argument.
And then the
And the LFA is the one that you had to get on Lexus's list to purchase, right?
Sure.
That's
but
that was dubbed as a supercar.
Right, exactly. And
that's the one that Paris Hilton bought
the counter
and drove around with a damn dog in her lap.
It's not the same. It couldn't be the quote unquote Mark V Supra because it's a supercar and the Supra was not. And that's sort of where we got onto the conversation of, like, well, what is and what is not a supercar? And, like, my point had been, like, it might not, the Supra, the 94 Mark IV Supra might not be a supercar by the definition, but I think that many folks would tell you that, they believe it to have fallen into that category.
Right.
But okay, then
it became like, well, let's define what a supercar is and is not, and that's kind of like where the conversation started.
Gotcha.
So let's look at the LFA then. If we're going to say it's a spiritual successor, which I like, it is and it isn't, because they're really two very different cars. Even if you dumb it down or bring up the old Supra to today's standards. The LFA, do you know how much that costs?
It's like $250,000, I think.
Base price of $375.
Right, and you have to get on a list. You have to be approved.
It has the engine in the right spot. It's got a 4.8 V10, 553 horsepower. It's
got weird opening doors.
Way above even the new Supra.
No, I
totally agree with what you say.
I think the new Supra is actually that's kind of what I was saying. Was like the new Supra feels less like the old Supra.
And more
like the evolution of the old Supra than the LFA did. Like the LFA to me feels like a Mark IV Supra evolved.
Right.
Whereas the new Supra feels like
here's a
Mark
new car.
IV Supra.
So you're basically saying
that just
skipped
20 years.
Right.
It's brand new, but it's like I think it's still got like 300 and some more. I don't think it's got some kind of sick horsepower number, but it's like it really did. It didn't. It seemed like the new Supra feels like an iteration and not an evolution of the old Supra.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, think about some of the cars they brought back. So, like the Charger, like the Dodge,
GTO.
or the Charger, the GTO.
You love your GTO, don't
I do.
How much that they changed and what they did to them, and how in some cases they ruined what the car was.
The GTO.
Yeah.
I love the GTO underneath the exterior. I love everything they tried to do with the GTO, but they should have made it look better than a
Or
G6.
they
Right.
should have just called it a Monero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have
Like-
been cool because then you go, okay, this is a new car. It's
not the
fast.
GTO, right,
it's not the GTO, but it's got balls of rear-wheel drive. It's fun. And I'd been like, that's a sick car. And then I heard a new GTO's coming out, I got pumped because GTOs
everybody
they
did.
had some fantastic vehicles back in the day.
Right.
The look, the performance, it's iconic. And then it came out, and I was like, huh? Like, I immediately was like, I don't even like them. I don't care anymore. It's just.
But I mean, it's the same thing with the Supra. You've got the Mark IV, you've got the LFA, and then you've got this Mark V Supra.
Right.
They just went. We're going 30 years into the future.
Right.
It's basically the same car with new technology, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't.
agree with that. It doesn't
call it
get
whatever
better.
you want. It's not a Supra. They're just calling it a Supra.
Now, and here's the point: a lot
To
of
try
guys
to
are
bring the
making
name back.
that I'm kind of. I agree with you that it just kind of feels like they redesigned it. They're trying to bring the name back. They're hoping that the sales from the fanboys like us who grew
Right.
up and make more money than when we were working at Home Depot or Burger King or wherever will look to buy one.
Right.
But I'm interested, just like with the Mark IV, how good is the aftermarket going to be and what can it be? Now, that again, that's not going to make it
Sure.
a supercar.
It'll be a
but
while.
It will. But it's
And-
going to take time.
I'm sure Liberty Walk will be right on that with a huge ass riveted body kit.
I feel like
And everything Ford's going to cost $10,000.
I feel like Nissan did it right because I think that anybody who, and I'm sure I'll
my
get
gosh.
corrected on this. Probably Jordan will call me and tell me I'm an idiot, but like
I don't think Jordan listens to this.
I believe that everybody sort of understands that the GTR is a Skyline,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
that is
Nissan
like-
was they
Well, I mean, car
without
guys
a
do.
doubt
But
they said the GTR, we're bringing that to the US as a Skyline, we're calling it the GTR.
but they didn't call it a Skyline. Like it's not, you can't go buy a Skyline. You can go buy a GTR. And
Right.
Everybody knows that it's like, well, not everybody.
Some
but
people even will call it the Skyline GTR.
The
you
car
know?
guys know what it's supposed to be, but because it didn't sort of like carry that name over, people like the people who aren't fanboys of the old JDM cartoons and don't know what Dorifto means aren't going to like look at that and be like, what's going on? That's not a Skyline, blah, blah, blah. It's only got 2 doors and,
Yeah.
Right.
it doesn't have a trunk and blah.
Blah.
So, right.
Right.
So,
But Nissan was very clear about when they brought the car
Absolutely.
over. They said it's the Skyline. We're calling it the GTR.
Sure.
And
yeah, I think
this
they
is
called
what
it a
it's going to be.
Turbo GTR at first. Is something like
Yeah,
weird.
I mean they were clear about what the car was and what it was going to be, and
That's a cool car.
it's
too.
the evolution of the car.
But again, now you read the specs off. We said without knowing what it was. I had an idea it was a GTR, which just shows that I'm a genius when it comes to all things cars, and I know more than everybody. And I say that only just to piss certain people off, because I obviously don't. And I will own up to that. But that car, you're asking if it was a supercar or not. It's one of those things that we're talking about how friends have multiples of them.
yeah.
Nobody that I personally know has multiples of a supercar. I know guys that have multiple rare cars. You
Jay
know what I'm talking
Leno, right?
Yeah.
like I said, personal.
Right,
So,
sure.
like Doc. Have
Yeah.
you seen Doc's collection? I know you haven't. I've
Yeah.
been at
No.
Doc's Hangout. He has some really, really rare cars, really cool. Some of them, I don't know what they cost. I just know I can't afford them.
Right.
You know?
But he's only got one of each.
Yeah, and it's like, it's very rare. But even him, I don't look at it and go, yeah, he's got multiple supercars.
Right.
He's got multiple amazing cars, sports cars. But even somebody that has this awesome collection, when you say collection, that's not like somebody has 2 cars. So we got this guy we know has a collection.
stable.
Yeah, and I'm looking at that and going, he doesn't have a bunch of supercars.
He's got a harem of sports cars.
They're amazing too, man. It's so cool. Some of them. He's got a WRC. That was my dream car when I had my Tercel.
Yeah.
You know, the Supra and the WRC. As a fat kid that only had a Toyota Tercel, those were the 2 cars I aspired to have. So, but even then, they're not supercars.
Sure.
I'm still trying to get my 1940s truck.
And before we run out, those are sick.
I know.
Before we run out of time, my all-time favorite argument was, well, did you have a poster of a Supra on your wall when you were a kid? Because I did. Everybody's like, no. Literally, everybody's like, we all had posters of Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
I even found a picture of the one I had on my wall, like, I had this one.
With a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit sign.
I did.
I
not
didn't have that one. Mine was different, but I just remember that one too.
Did not have a poster of a Lamborghini.
What do you have a poster of?
You already know the answer to that question.
Oh, I do.
Kathy Ireland.
Close.
No. It was Italian. It was Italian. It was a Testarossa, of course. It's a red Testarossa.
Testarossa, man. He loves them. Loves the song, loves the car. And I'm with them on it. I think the car and the song are fantastic.
That's right.
It is.
So, in conclusion, Supra,
Sports car.
DJ,
Sports car.
I say sports car.
It's a sports car.
It's a
It's
super.
an amazing sports car.
It's a super car, but it's not a supercar.
Which is
It's
exactly what the article that the guy who called it Supercar Link said.
It's
the only mention of it said it's a super space car.
Supra car.
Oh, I made that pun yesterday too. Oh, see what he did there.
Wow.
Quick one.
You're so clever.
I know. All right. Is that it?
Good talk, man. Now I'm starting to wake up.
All car. Ugh.
Is that it, guys? Because
all car talk. Car talk. Car talk.
which is funny because last week we talked about how people want us to do Urban Dictionary,
I know,
more news articles, and
well, this would only.
Then we just did car talk for
I know
an hour.
this would only be our second car episode.
Well, this kind of like popped up yesterday. Like, you know,
Yeah,
obviously the conversation popped off on Columbus Racing, and we were like, Randy was like, "Hey, you know what we're talking about tomorrow?" And I was like, "Supercars."
Like this went on for the whole workday. Basically,
Yeah,
people come and go,
all
obviously,
day long.
And like 2 hours later, I was like, "DJ, guess what we're talking about tomorrow?"
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, all right, cool. Well, that's
5
it.
donuts as a sports car,
That's right.
5 donuts as a sports car.
0.
Negative 5 donuts
A 10.
Fucking 10.
as a hypercar, supercar,
Yep.
mega car. It gets 0.
I still want one.
All right.
I would love to have one, but
You park it outside. You're not allowed to have one.
I would. I'm running out of places to park cars.
You either need to build another garage.
That is poor planning on your part.
You're
Well-
right. Build a better garage or get less wives.
Yeah,
Get less wide.
I have one. It's not like I have a harem of cars.
That's one too many. I hope she's
Or
outside
wives,
listening.
even for that matter. I don't even have a harem of wives.
Yeah.
I don't have a
So-
harem of anything except weight. I love that.
A harem of weight.
A harem of pounds. I've got all of these pounds like Solomon. I am
All
the
right.
Solomon of weight.
Biblical jokes. Oh man, I hope everybody else gets that. That was good.
All right. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Corey, who we gave a shout out to. He friend
Corey.
requested me.
Yeah, did he? Yeah, he wants to come.
Don't even know the guy.
He wants to come down and
We're Facebook official
Drink some
now.
bourbon.
I think we're going on a date.
I'm jealous.
go on a date, whatever. He's
Keep
on.
coming down.
He's
He wants to be
a
our third wheel permanently.
Ohio VW guy.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew the name.
That's cool.
I gave him
I started
all
Ohio
of.
Vita before Columbus Racing.
Yeah, I gave him all of my Mark III shit when I got rid of
Nice.
my GTI. I'm like, I can't sell any of it. You want it? He's like,
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
sell it because none of them are running anymore.
yeah.
That's why
Well,
you sold yours.
no. I'm like, I've got all this Mark III stuff. I can't get rid of it. I said, I got skid plates. I got all this stuff. You want any of it? He's
Headlights
like,
with halos
yeah.
in them.
I got rid of those
Altezza
long
taillights.
time ago.
Underbody neons that are really meant for a Civic, but they fit.
I never did underbody neons ever. That was you.
Oh, it was.
That
Blue
was you.
underbodies on the white Tercel, baby.
I don't know how
And-
I don't know how that one on the left side like stayed not broken. I mean, as much as it scraped.
I
on
mounted
the
it to
ground.
the outside, so I couldn't open the
Oh,
door.
okay. Seeing Randy try to get in and out of a Tercel Dukes of Hazzard style is going to mess with me all day long. I feel like we need to get like a crowbar and
Picture me
some like
getting in and out.
KY.
Picture me getting in and out of that without a belt, so my pants keep falling.
It would make a noise like.
I have to come back, but they're not going to be as funny as that.